I have a question for everyone in this podcast. Why do so many men know they need to let go and they still cannot? Let's try to address this question. I think I have the right guest to provide us with an answer, but this is an open conversation, so please use the chat box to make sure we have an interactive session. Tonight, I'm joined by Elaina Iamello, a men's mental health coach who works with men coming out of toxic relationships. This is a conversation about strength, responsibility, and what letting go really means. So before we jump in the topics, for people meeting you for the first time, like me, what do you actually do and who do you work mainly with?
I serve men who have gone through an unhealthy relationship, a toxic relationship, fill in the blank, whatever word you want to use, who are struggling to actually move forward in their life and finding that they feel stuck in the past. So I help them create a very practical way forward that is very logical, tangible, and is more of a get it done and less of this whole fluffy, therapy
Mm,
chat talk. I mean, I'm really results oriented and I love that. So I am always happy to work with people who are feeling like they need a bit of support. They need guidance. They don't know what to do. And men who are really motivated, they want to just move on with their lives and actually live the life that they're really, that they knew they always could have, but are struggling to actually reach out and grab it.
mm. Yeah, I guess that's the toughest part, like to take the first step. Uh, After it's still hard because you need to go through a lot of emotions, things are not very comfortable with, but to break the ice, it's always challenging. So, at what point do they realize that they are in a toxic relationship? Is it at early, late stages, or only after it's over?
Everybody is different. I think I've spoken to a lot of men that are in different stages. Some of them are in their relationship still and they recognize that it's unhealthy, it's not working for them, they're unhappy.
Mm,
Others have approached me, and the conversation starts really when they're recognizing that what they've been through is unhealthy, is labeled as abuse, wasn't something that is okay and should be accepted. So everybody is different. And I guess one of my missions is to really make sure that I reach out to all of those individuals who are in all realms of that spectrum of where they're at, to educate but also encourage them, whether it's men who are stuck and are still navigating a way out, or it's folks who are out and they're just so confused and lost and don't really know what is the next step forward. So it's very individual specific, but there's a lot of information out there nowadays to really learn what abuse is, which I think the
yeah.
conversation is growing in terms of what abuse is for men. And I love that.
Yeah, each case is each case. There's one situation that I think I haven't mentioned, but yes, I think it's not too late. What about when someone is in the brink of starting a relationship? So they are just starting to seeing that person, and they are sharing with you the interactions. And was there an occasion where you realized that maybe if you start dating this person, in the long run, you're going to be in a toxic relationship? Can you perceive signs, let's say, before people are actually in a relationship? If there are like any symptoms?
There's definitely the classic red flag, green flag kind of situation going on, right? So it's all about understanding how to recognize. Recognition and awareness is really going to be the first step to helping you protect yourself if you are starting a relationship, if you are in a relationship already or even after, right? So it's knowing what those flags are. That's how I guess society has liked to label it. So when it comes to those red flags, I mean, I think a big part is less about having this concrete list of,
Mm,
oh, these are all the bad things, and more really learning to listen to how you feel, which sounds kind of fluffy, but it checks out. Your nervous system is very smart. And I like
mm,
to always remind people, like, you've pretty much got a computer inside your body and it does tell you things. You just need to learn to listen to the output that it's giving you in order to actually make decisions that are going to be in your best interest. So I mean, maybe less so. It's always helpful to learn the green and the red flags, right? Those are pretty widely easy accessible. You can even go to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT really quickly. But I like to say, okay, hang on though. Your body knows really cool stuff. And if you learn to listen to it, usually those red flags are not going to make you feel good. And that's a pretty clear sign to distance yourself, back away, take a pause, take a second to kind of see what's going on.
And if you point out that, okay, you are about to start a toxic relationship, or you are in a toxic relationship, are people defensive? Like, do they push back? Because you probably are going to refer someone they love despite all the bad situation they are in. So is that the context where the person doesn't want to admit because they love the woman that much?
I always approach it from the perspective that like they're in this relationship because they do care. They have a heart and they do love. And I think that's something to actually admire about people. Is like it's not bad that you love this person. I think I more shift the conversation to being, how does this relationship serve you? Is it making you happy? How are you showing up the way you want to in your life? With this relationship being a part of it, that's kind of what I like to draw attention to versus encouraging them to maybe see that there's some unhealthy dynamics. Because, well, for one, me telling them really is unhelpful because usually self-discovery is a little bit more effective. But just having them think about, well, how does this relationship impact me? And how do I want a relationship to impact me? And really being able to draw those two lines of this is what's happening right now, and this is what I ultimately would want in a perfect scenario. They can usually come to the conclusion that things are not really where I want them to be. I'm not really feeling the way I want to. It's to a degree that I think is just not good, and I should probably get out of this or take a second to consider maybe doing something about it. So that's usually the approach I take, just because, like, who am I to tell them to leave or not? I had a situation myself personally where a lot of people told me that advice and it doesn't work. So I know that the approach is very important to help somebody realize, right? Because it's them that ultimately makes that decision of staying or going. And me just being able to empower them with perceiving it a certain way and thinking about things in a certain manner, it might actually help them to think about some things that they never have and make a decision that will serve them better.
Yeah. Now, I think that's a very good approach, because instead of pointing fingers at the person, you just say, look, you are not feeling well. This is not serving you. Just check how are you relating to the relationship, and the outcome is not positive. So it's not really about a third person. It's about how the man feels about the whole relationship, and that's true for many things. That's also true, let's say, for jobs. When someone says, look, yeah, I'm very well paid, or there's a lot of flexibility, but they are miserable. Maybe the job doesn't serve you. Or yeah, I live in this neighborhood. I know it's a bit, let's say, noisy, but at least public transport is just here. But you're always trained by let's say, the city mayhem. Maybe you should move to a quieter place because you are not really okay. Because bottom line, it's about how you feel. It doesn't matter who are you dealing with, what sort of job you have, where do you live. If it's not serving you, it's not serving you. So there's no better evaluator than your sentiments.
Excellent. I'm glad that you have broadened that to all of life, because the same concepts definitely apply. It's just the nuances are different, right? And what it means to somebody that's where it gets a little bit more specific. But ultimately, it is the same concept of really like move toward the things that feel good for you, that actually give you that peace, joy, that whatever you want, and move away from the things that don't. But that's easier said than done, of course.
Of course, like it takes a lot of courage, because some people are great animals of habits, and they don't really want to move on because they are afraid. They feel that what they have, it's not ideal, but could be way worse in their head. So they rather play safe, and by not taking that step, they will stay where they are. Most of them are just stuck. And I'm not talking just about people. I've been there myself, in multiple situations. Not much about relationships, I have to say, but other kind of context, like in terms of work, for instance. There were occasions that I wouldn't dare to make the move because, I don't know, there was something there that was just keeping me for another month. And I mean, it was not another month, it was another 3 months, 6 months, or even a year. And I was not seeing that it was already time to find another environment. And I think once you start to be confident making these moves, let's say you can even translate those moves from work to relationships and vice versa, because you realize that life will move on one way or another. There'll be challenges along the way, and often you end up in a better place. Maybe the transition will be tough, but maybe you need to go through it.
Absolutely. Every transition is tough. I think you got to choose your difficult, right? Difficult in not doing anything, difficult in doing something. Either way, that's one of the things I wanted to touch on today, but I'm bringing it up now because it came up. You got to choose your difficult, right?
Yes. Yeah. That I think it was Douglas Murray who said that you better choose what you want to regret.
That's right.
I love
It
that.
is.
Yes.
I like
Like,
that. Yeah.
if you can afford to choose what you regret, you are already in a very good situation. That's already like let's say an upgrade. What's the most common thing that men struggle with when they need to let go and they don't manage?
So this is a great question, and it really helps me clarify even what letting go is and that moving on process. And so I do want to address that there's actually two parts to this whole process: healing, moving on, whatever you want to call it. And I find in my work that most men only do the second part. So I kind of wanted to break that down just to help everybody get on the same page with what exactly we're talking about today and what it means to do it. And this is exactly what I do, because I coach men specifically through this stage of their lives, this letting go, healing, moving on stage. And most men skip this part. It's actually creating issues for them. So I want to break this down first really quick. So number one, right? Sure, moving on, right? Moving on is actually an external process. This is actually the part that a lot of men are good at, that I've noticed. It's the part that society praises, so that's why they're good at it. This is the part that they actually default to automatically. So moving on shows up in somebody's behavior. And so I see men dating again, changing routines, having goals, improving their fitness and lifestyle. They're focusing on their careers, and that's fantastic. Most men start here because they believe that action equals healing. And action helps. I'm always for action, but it's only the first step. And it only is helpful if something is done before actually you take action. So that's where I want to kind of separate now moving on and letting go. So moving on, an external process. Letting go is an internal process. This is the part that not many men are actually taught to do. And I was not taught to do this. So I had to learn myself through trial and error how to do this. And it means to release. So you're releasing the attachment, the fantasy of what could have been. Okay. We're releasing the need for closure or for answers. We're releasing any kind of resentment or guilt that was created during the relationship, or any kind of identity that he has built inside of this relationship. And what that looks like practically, right, is he's not checking up on her and her social media. He's not imagining a future with her anymore, not hoping she will change. He's actually feeling excited about his own future again and choosing himself even when it's uncomfortable. So moving on is taking a step forward, but letting go is actually removing the massive weight that's in your backpack before you actually take that step. So when I see people not letting go and moving on, there's definitely some like common experiences that they actually are struggling with. And that looks like being very busy and productive, right? They're doing a lot, they're improving themselves, they're going to the gym, they're making plans, or hanging out with friends, maybe they're dating again, maybe they're not really talking about their ex. So on the outside, it looks pretty healthy and good, right? It looks like they've moved on, but internally, that man is still feeling a lot of tension, heaviness. They're feeling stuck specifically, still thinking about what happened, perhaps on mental loops for hours, and having those emotional reactions to actually when her name props like it comes up, right? Or a trigger or a memory, something like that. Maybe he's comparing his ex to other women that he meets, um, possibly still carrying that confusion, that guilt, that anger inside, right? So this is really the gap, is like when you move on, great. And I see a lot of men doing that, but if they haven't let go, there's still a massive problem. They're going to feel like I'm doing everything right, but it's not actually doing anything. I'm not where I want to be. And ultimately, that's where I come in to say, guys, you need to do both. You need to let
Yeah.
go internally so that you can move on externally. That's the only path that's going to lead to actual full closure, peace, and that long-term stability that they're looking for. So that's what I'm
Mm.
passionate about, is really drawing light to
Can
that.
yeah, can we say that you cannot fully move on until you let go?
Yeah, definitely. Because I know like people will view moving on as really kind of the whole process, like the end goal, the end state. So
Yes.
absolutely. I mean, it's definitely, you got to have both. You got to have both. But I only see people kind of doing that second step. And that's where a lot of turbulence shows up.
Yeah, I think it's the easier path because it doesn't take much psychological work. It's all about getting busy with stuff, trying to do well, you know, go after your goals, maybe achieve one or two. And while you are occupied with those things, you don't think much. And perhaps it helps, and I would say it does. But as you just stated, it's not enough. It's just I'd say often it's like a coping mechanism. Like people will use it as a distraction. But let's say if that goal that they are working on collapses, then they might end up, in a very, very bad situation. Maybe even worse than they were when they started working on that goal. So if it's just some artificial context, it may be pretty, may look good on social media, but when you go back to bed and put your head on the pillow, maybe it wasn't enough, as you just said.
Of course. And I'm a very practical, logical person. I love to just be very tangible. And so, in my own experience, I had to figure out actually that moving on is external and it's action oriented, but you can totally do so many actions to let go as well. It's just going to be, it's going to look different. It's going to look different in terms of what kind of action, but there is
Mm.
definitely, there is that, I guess what I like to look at it is everything is very action oriented. There's lots to do. Some of that doing is going to allow you to feel like you're moving forward in life, and then some of that doing is actually going to help you release that emotional pull. And there's that's what I do with men in my program, because I understand, maybe I relate to men like that. I'm very logical, tangible. Please tell me what to do and I will do it, and that's, then I'll get the results. So it's very action and practical in terms of how do we let go. Maybe some people find it's helpful to sit in a therapy circle and talk about it, but I have designed more action oriented steps because it's very feasible. It's all about reprogramming and rewiring, and that takes action. Some of it maybe takes talking and thinking, and that there's definitely time and place for that in healing and growth. But action,
Mm.
action, action. I'm all about that.
Yeah. So what's the first thing that a man should do to start let go?
I usually get them to start actually with regaining control of their immediate environment. I have 4 steps that I usually walk men through, but
Mm.
number one is I need you to have more control of your actual current day experience, because that's going to free up a lot of energy, a lot more mental brain power, and you're going to feel a little bit more calmer so that you can think more clear. So how I approach that is really just working with them to give them practical tools in the moment that they can interrupt those things that are causing them to have energy drain. Typically, it's overthinking. There's so much overthinking going on in the male community of getting over a breakup. So that's what we really we focus on, is like, here's some tools. This is how you're going to implement it. This is when you're going to implement it, and you're going to keep practicing that so that you can cut that mental loop and regain that time that you're wasting, regain that energy that you're wasting, so that they can feel more in control, so that we can do more work.
Yeah, I'd say like for most men, the letting go, it's like the final confirmation that they've failed, because they will give up for real in a project in which they put a lot of effort, passion, interest, and they saw it on the long run as part of their lives. So it's like, okay, this is it. I'm letting it go. So there's no way back. So I need to put some work on the situation to come to an end. So that means I failed. In some sense, they have to assume that the relationship failed, whether it's their fault or not. But they need to acknowledge that that person with whom they imagine a future will no longer be around them. So I think that's a hard pill to swallow.
Absolutely. And I get where you're coming from. Really, I like to think of it like this. Like, ultimately, if we zoom out from a young age, a lot of men have been shaped by this unspoken operating system of society, right? Like, this, they haven't necessarily built this stigma within themselves. It's been society and culture and family and maybe some role models that have taught them that enduring means you're strong, right? And if you stop, that means you're quitting. And if you let go, that means you're weak. So
Yes.
internally, men already get pre-calibrated from a young age to hold on, to push through, to keep things together at all costs. And that's what I see a lot, especially in my department, when it comes to men who are struggling with moving forward, because that means they have to actually acknowledge, wow, like, I failed in all these things. And so what we do, I mean, this conditioning is very subtle, but it's powerful, right? It impacts men in all walks of life, in all issues of their life. It just really gets into their bones. So it becomes this filter, this lens through which they interpret all their decisions. And ultimately, it reads as failure, right? The letting go reads as like, I've failed. But not because it's failure, but because he was taught, like, pain tolerance equals loyalty. If I self-sacrifice, that means I have virtue. If I'm staying no matter what, I'm strong. So anybody that's lived through any kind of unhealthy relationships or trauma bonds or emotional chaos, that lens only gets stronger. It really becomes harder to trust your own instincts, harder to walk away, harder to choose yourself. So what I offer people as like a recalibration, okay, that one that is rooted in clarity, not stigmas, because I don't care for any of that crap that society likes to define about men. Staying in something that erodes your discipline and and erodes you as a whole person is self-abandonment. Okay, it's not being strong. Okay, because real discipline is actually knowing when something is actually costing you your mental health, your identity, your peace, your potential, right? And walking away from that, that is true strength. It really looks like ending what is destroying you. It's choosing a future over fear, or refusing to let guilt hold you hostage. So I like to frame it as letting go is not quitting. It's actually taking responsibility of your life. Letting go is not weak. It's courage to stop breaking yourself to comfort other people. And this is something I had to learn myself. So I guess I'm a little passionate about reframing that. Ultimately, it's freedom. It's not letting go is not failure. It's really it's freedom.
Yeah, I like that a lot, because it seems to me that it's like regaining control. Like the narrative is in charge and you are just a slave of the story. But the moment you decide to let go, then it's up to you to write your own chapter. So if you have that capacity, then more power to you. It doesn't mean that it's going to be very pleasant or positive, but at least you have the pen and the paper. That's a good start. That's a good start. So if you have a vision and horizon and aspiration, perhaps you can do well because you'll be motivated by the things that you have ahead of you, and chances are that you provide your surroundings, your community, the people around you, with some good energy, and that's how the good things start. But going back to that thing of letting it go, I just want to share an experience. It's not mine. I don't know. I know that some people say, I know a friend who once did this. It wasn't me. I will tell later on a couple of examples of my own experience, but this one, I swear it wasn't me. Actually, I was never married, so people who know me, they know it's not me. I cannot lie. People can go on
call you out.
yeah, they can check my CV, so it's not me for sure. So a friend of mine who got divorced, he, of course, he couldn't let it go. It took him, I don't know, a few months. I don't know to be precise how many, but let's say at month 2, 3, 4, something like that, he was still checking his ex-wife's Facebook.
Mhm.
Typical. You heard that,
All the time.
in the past, all the time. Yeah, better said. So it's a classical. But in Facebook, it's fine. You can check people's profile, and the person won't know. But he, by accident, he was checking their last private message, and he pressed the thumbs up.
Mhm.
So she got a thumbs up from him. And even if you delete it, she will still get a message that a message was unsent by that person. No, and he felt so bad, so bad. So it was not just that he was still chasing her and trying, not really chasing, but trying to keep track of what she was doing.
Mhm.
And the moment he realized that she was aware of it, for him was devastating. And I think no wonder.
Absolutely. I hear that a lot, and that's definitely a common thing that I do see a lot of men being stuck in, is they don't want to get back with this individual, but they feel so drawn back, and they're just not understanding what that's about, where it's coming from, and why it's there. So definitely that is a big piece of what I do as well, is just to make it make sense, make it tangible, that there's something that happened to you in that experience with that person, and it's created this bond. And that usually, people like to call them trauma bonds or all sorts of stuff, but there's a really strong dynamic that formed and created this emotional chaos of highs and lows that it's really hard to describe unless you've been in it. It's really like almost like this addictive, your nervous system just craves this chaotic unpredictability. And so once that's gone and the trigger is gone, right? You'd think that everything gets better and it's easier, but men's nervous system are still impacted, still influenced by these things. And a lot of people don't really understand how to navigate that, how to take action so that they are honestly unwiring that and really reprogramming a different sort of pattern, because it's definitely I just remember back to my experience thinking, this is wild. I can never imagine myself being in this scenario and what I'm stuck in. It really just, there was like kind of like an out of body experience of, wow, I never thought that this would happen to me, and how I could get caught in something so insanely toxic. But you're fully invested with your nervous system and your all parts of you. It's really just amazing to realize that that's a real experience, and to navigate the aftermath is always the most difficult. It makes the most sense when you still have your partner there and you're going through that chaos, and that's something you understand. But as soon as they're gone and you're still going through that chaos, you're like, that doesn't make any sense now. There shouldn't be any chaos, but it continues. So to work through that is it's an interesting experience for sure.
Yeah. And the other one is, I think the most common is that, okay, we are not together anymore, but I don't want to see her with any other man, at least for the next 12 months. Okay. Just because it's uncomfortable. That's understandable. you know. But there are people who say, I move on, I let go, but I wish her terrible things. I think they are lying to themselves, because if you are still concerned with her future, if you are still resentful, then you didn't let go and you didn't move on, because her life still matters a lot.
Absolutely. This is my gauge of, of people, just to really quickly ask yourself, have I let go? Because really, this is like the easiest way to find out is, does does she still have impact and influence your life? Can you think of her and that just be a thought? Can you see her name and that just be a name on a, maybe remind you of what she looks like, and that's where it ends? How it I'm always really asking men, how is this impacting you? Because that's the most important thing that I'm focused on.
Yes.
And, some people, it's just a minor thing that, it's just like a fly buzzing around, and they're like, oh, I wish it wasn't there. But for most of the men I work with, they are experiencing lives that they are driven and, you know, trying different things and working on themselves. But as soon as they hear a song that maybe reminds them of her,
Yes.
2 hours
The
gone,
music.
a whole day gone, right? So it's
Yeah.
those kinds of things that are really apparent to me, that as soon as somebody is significantly impacted, or, significant subjective. I would say if the person is not happy with how that their ex still has, impacts their life in any which way, then that's a clear sign that there's still some moving on to do. Maybe there's a lot, maybe there's a little, but it's really subjective. I guess somebody could be happy and say, yeah, I'm okay with seeing his name, or, hearing the song that we used to share. It doesn't, maybe it makes me lose 5 minutes in my day, and I'm okay with that. But somebody else, it might just ruin their whole day. And then now they're sitting on the couch and they didn't go do their workout, and they've just starved themselves the whole day and they're drinking alcohol. So really just depends on the impact and the degree of how
Yeah.
much you're okay with that.
It's funny that you mentioned music, because music is so powerful, whether it's for, whether it's a good way or on a bad one. Because sometimes all you need is to listen that music, and you are elevated. That's you are. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I know many individuals like myself. Sometimes all you need is that tune to elevate yourself from that dark context you think you are stuck in. And the other way around, like that tune that reminds that woman, or I don't know, your mother that is not around
Mhm.
anymore, and you are, and basically you are you are not around for the next 6 hours. Like, it doesn't matter if you are still in the middle of your working day. You better switch off the laptop, because you won't be useful. It's incredible how music really impacts individuals. But I want to talk to you about strength. And I know offline we were discussing my last guest, and he started the podcast saying, strong is never wrong. So here is a very powerful sentence. I think is very interesting insight for people who are curious. They can check out my channel. It was yesterday at the same time. His name was Daniel. I think it was very, very interesting, even for people who are now watching us when it comes to masculinity, mental health. I think we talk a bit about politics, but there are also some life insights that will be of your interest. So I invite everyone to watch tomorrow or whenever they have time. What's your definition of strength when it comes to men?
I guess I see strength as very okay. This actually reminds me of a quote that I really, really like, because I think the quote speaks a lot stronger to my definition. And I believe I'm going to try to remember it because it's on my wall. I've had it there for a couple years, and it goes something like this: tears bore witness to a man's greatest courage. It's the courage to suffer. And to me, that speaks strength, because
Yes,
being vulnerable, being able to actually face the things that are the most terrifying, right? Which in modern day is emotions, the truth, and how you feel about some stuff that's happened in life. is the most difficult thing. And I think the strongest people can do it. And I kind of even reflect on myself to see who I was before my experience, and the fact that I totally thought I was strong. Like I was suppressing emotion, and I thought like nobody can impact me. I
Mm.
don't get influenced by anybody. I'm great. This is, I'm rolling. But then when everything happened and I went through my experience, I realized like, this is hard. And in order to actually get through and get to the other side of where I wanted to be, I needed to pull up my damn socks, and I needed to face some stuff that was seriously not comfortable. And I guess I learned that, geez, that's really what strength is, regardless of who it is, regardless of if it's a man or female. I think that strength is really doing the things that absolutely terrify you. And I guess in my
Yes.
realm, that is being honest, facing the truth, and then facing all of those feelings and the things that maybe we don't want to admit to ourselves, or even just acknowledging our own pain is really scary. So there's a lot. I guess that's a loaded topic, but ultimately that to me is strength. I mean, sure, someone can walk down the street, like lift up a car, and I'd be like, gasp, that's very impressive. But if somebody was to come up to me and say, hey, I really need, can you listen for a minute? Like I just maybe need to cry. And it was a man, I'd be like, holy Jesus, like that is the strongest person ever, just to walk up
Yes.
to me. I guess I see it in a different light of, I can really admire internal and mental strength in a whole new light now that I understand it a little more.
It's interesting that you mentioned tears, because I was about to ask you how much vulnerability can coexist with discipline and structure and masculinity as such.
Yeah, absolutely. And that all has like massive relevance, especially in getting over, right? And working through toxic relationships. So, I mean, I feel like discipline, structure, and accountability really, they actually highlight the fact that healing is not just emotional. These are where my practical, like logical comes in again. Because in my healing journey, I was not sitting in groups and chatting in therapy. I was like, tell me what to do. Um, I really just wanted to get it done. I wanted to process the baggage. I was like, just tell me the formula. Let's go. And so, what I learned is that discipline, structure, and accountability really play into being able to move forward. So, I want to kind of just touch on each really quickly just to help the viewers understand that. So, for discipline, after that relationship ended, we're not trusting ourselves anymore. I'm not sure why we would, right? We stayed somewhere that was really hurting us big time for so long. So rebuilding that trust is very essential, and it's done through discipline, right? By telling ourselves, I followed through and I say what I mean. So if you say you're going to do something like drink a glass of water every morning, and then you actually do it for 3 mornings in a row, right? You have the discipline to do that. That is just evidence to your own self that you are true to your word and that you mean what you say. So that is just rebuilding those small bits of trust. I mean, I think back to how many times I told myself I was going to leave and then I didn't. So I eroded so much self-trust, and it was through the small disciplined actions that I rebuilt. So that's discipline, which I really love. The next is structure. So ultimately, I developed this internal programming. I like to always kind of use in my line of work, like internal programming is what happened. We created this program when we were in these relationships, and now it doesn't serve us when we're outside of it. So there needs to be a little bit of recalibration. My internal programming did not care that he was gone. Typically, nobody's does. It doesn't matter that the trigger's gone. I was still doing that, reacting as if the chaos and the unpredictability was still happening, right? I was conditioned to survive in this. So I needed to give myself the opposite. I need to give myself some predictability. And how did I do that? I used structure. So by creating small, consistent habits and routines in my day, I actually showed my system that, like, you're safe now. You can calm down a little bit. Okay. And through that consistency, it actually did. So I like to always tell people structure does not need to be intimidating. It doesn't need to be massive. It can really just be one simple step, like choosing a time to wake up every morning, or setting a workout time, or drinking a damn glass of water every morning. You know, it can be something that you can fit into your life and curate as easy as it comes. So it doesn't have to be something like you have to have this whole day structured out. And this is actually one thing I really love doing when I work with my clients, because it is so simple. It's so highly effective to get them results quick just by creating a little bit of structure. And then accountability goes with that as well. So this part is extremely underrated, especially for men going through this experience, because if you're trying to recalibrate your system, it's all haywire, it's chaotic, right? You're trying to operate differently while the old system is in place. And that's just that you're like fighting yourself. That's stressful, right? It's very difficult to do alone. And I certainly did not do that myself alone. That is wild. That's very hard. I actually needed someone who understood what I've been through and who could see the patterns that I didn't, because I was caught in it, right? You can't, usually we're so good at giving advice and seeing outside perspectives, but to look inside, it's so confusing. So,
Yes.
when you get that kind of support that actually can provide you with that accountability, you're staying grounded, you know, even when the old crap crops up, you're able to actually keep accountable to the person you want to be. And it keeps you clear when those emotions and all that judgment comes along. So ultimately, I like to tell people you can't do this recalibration alone. And most men are not doing it alone. The ones who actually get it done have somebody to answer to guide them, to support them. So having someone who understands that is not weakness. It's really actually one of the smartest moves that you can make, is to get somebody to be on your team and then help you through it.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I think it seems to be that, yeah, you need to do some bits on your own, but you always need this third person or best friend, or someone you can trust, someone who is there for you in the good and the bad moments, someone who cares about you from the bottom of their heart. And I think it's not always the man's fault, but most of us, like especially as we age, and that's a conversation I had with a friend of mine, that as we age, like we men, I'm laughing, but it's not really funny. But as we age, we have more mental health problems, and we have less men to talk about those mental problems. So that's really a terrible fight. Now, what to do about it, I think, is just to maintain those few relationships you have, treat them like they're a treasure, be available, because you never know if, let's say, in a week or in a month or even next year, the roles will change. It will be you who need that guy, not the other way around. Because some people that think, I'm stable, I'm strong, my life is somehow settled, so things won't go wrong. But life is full of surprises. We can all get ill, or one of our family members can catch a disease, and then how do you cope with that? We don't know. There are extreme situations in life that one cannot guess how we will take, because they are of a size and a magnitude that is way beyond what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So when people say I'm strong, I'm wide, like I used to when I was younger, let's say around the age of 20, I used to think that I was very strong. And I think I'm still relatively strong, but not as strong as I thought. Nowhere near. And the reason is I would be very vocal. So if I wouldn't be happy with something, I would just phrase it. If I see something that I was not happy with, I would just make fun of the situation, and I would just provoke people. But I realized that I was just being passive aggressive. I was not doing anything, not achieving anything out of it. I was creating friction with other people, and deep down, I was unhappy. So, what was the objective of keeping that behavior? I think there was no real positive outcome if I would still be the same person as I was, say, around the age of 20, because I was not great at, say, building bridges or cultivating relationships. I just thought that because I'm able to express myself, whether people like it or not, it's fine. It's good to be open about your thoughts, your opinions, be honest with yourself and others, but there is a degree of respect that one needs to keep in order to have people around you, because at some point people walk away. Maybe at the age of 20 you can still afford that, but as you age, people just don't have the nerves. And I realize that, especially as I get into the workforce. So yes, it's good to be firm, but one thing is to be firm, another thing is to be disrespectful. Because the fact that you are loud, and that's an advice I'll give for people that maybe watch us, the fact that you are noisy doesn't mean that you are strong. Sometimes it's just a mask. It's a whole facade. So watch out how you really feel about the situations, because your voice is not always a confirmation that you are the strong people, that's a strong person that you want to sell to the road.
Yeah, absolutely. That just reminds me of seeing a lot of certain little reels or messages online of like real strength is, when it's like the guy in the room that barely says anything, but as soon as he does, everyone listens, right? It's like they just the
Yes.
power of really showing up in a way that you want to in the world, where you weigh everything that you say and think so that it just I guess you're not filling the space, you're not filling the void with your thoughts or just energy. You're really being intentional about how you show up. I feel like that is self-mastery, being able to
Yes.
recognize, being able to really select and choose and be fully in control of what behaviors you're going to actually take action on, right? Because I think like, and this actually, I have so many quotes, and another one's coming up that really relates right now. And I like to always remind myself that emotions are valid, but behavior is not. And so, we all have emotions, right? Even the strongest person is sitting in the corner of the room and isn't saying anything, is probably still feeling maybe similar to everybody else, but they have such self-mastery and they're in control of themselves so tightly that their behavior is being executed exactly to a T, to their control. And I think that there's a lot of things in life that work us toward that, being in that place, right? I mean, life experiences, but also being open-minded of, when those difficult things happen in life, like you're saying, somebody gets sick or this or that, us just being cognizant that these are always opportunities for us to grow. And I have learned in my own experience that discomfort and pain is an opportunity to grow. So now,
Yes.
whenever I feel discomfort, I'm like, we're going that way. And that takes some practice. I didn't start off like this, but once you show yourself how capable you are, it gets really exciting to actually see the amount of opportunities that you can grow and elevate, right? But it's always down to that first step, that first time, really take that action to try.
Yeah, we have a comment here from Nicholas. I'm going to put it on the screen. Nicholas says, we as men also have grudges, but inside of our feelings, we do not forget whether the relationship was good or toxic or not. Yeah, we are complex, I would say.
I think that's fair. I feel like human beings are complex, so that's a completely valid point. And I think that definitely plays to a lot of what I hear. I mean, I talk to so many guys who are, I think it's completely valid for them to be pissed off. And so I'm like, great, because your emotion is valid, but how you behave about it, maybe not so much, depending on how they behave, right? But that anger and that frustration, I can't even imagine putting myself in the shoes of a man, because that really comes down to like society and how society tells you guys how to show up, tells you guys what you should and shouldn't do, and the slippery slope that it is to be a guy of, I don't know if me saying this to this person is just going to blow up in my face. Like, you have to walk on eggshells in all of life, not even just in relationships. And I'm really listening when I speak to men That's the message I'm getting, is that there's just everything you guys do is judged and watched with a microscope. And if you just maybe do something right to the wrong person, it doesn't matter. And everyone's just going to, usually side with the other party. Like I can understand where this frustration, where this anger is coming from. And there definitely needs to be more discussions to just validate and to recognize that, like, this is totally warranted and valid, like
Yes.
even if me saying that isn't going to fix it, because at this point, social stigma is like, I definitely wish I had a magic wand, but I don't. But me talking about it, it could make some waves and maybe just help people feel seen, heard, and understood. So when people feel seen, heard, and understood, it hurts a bit less. It's a little bit
Yeah.
more tolerable. You can go one more second, you can go one more day if you know that somebody out there is just seeing you. I can't do anything about it, but I can see that. And I can definitely, what I can do is, spread the word and talk about it and actually grow awareness to it. Because I think that, is maybe what needs to happen in the world, is we need to just talk about it more, because it's there. Everybody knows. It's kind of like the gum on the side of your like shoe that nobody wants to point out is there, but everyone sees it. But if somebody does, then we actually do something about it. So talking about these things, and just guys also voicing like, this sucks and I'm pissed, and this is unfair, and everybody kind of banding together, but in a way that's productive, because I see a lot of conversation online that's very valid, but it's done in an unproductive way. And I try to be very unbiased. I'm never siding with men or women. We're humans, and humans shouldn't be treated, this way or that. Ultimately, it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. So,
Yeah.
but very valid, just to draw attention to, help men feel like somebody gets it, or somebody sees that. I think that even of itself, I hope, has some kind of small impact.
Yeah, like you touch on a very interesting point, that there's not much space for praise when it comes to men's achievements. It's just our job. That's it. If we got it right, we just did what we were meant to. That's it. And I know there are some trivial things that we do every day, but there are a good few that are not trivial. They require a lot of effort, vision, discipline, as you just stated, merit. And often those things are not recognized, because apparently we just have the game in our favor. And I don't think that's the case. Like, okay, some people are in a better situation than others, among men, among women, but I don't really think that's a gender thing. There are individuals who come to this world and they have more opportunities than others. And I'm not saying this is unfair. That's just the way it is. I'm not here coming up with some political program to turn it upside down. But I have the impression that they look at men that, yeah, the road is yours. It has always been yours. It's not changing, and it's only getting more and more customized according to your needs and expectations. I never felt that way. Maybe I'm unlucky, but I don't think so. I never walk into. I don't remember walking into a room and taking advantage of being a man. Ever. I mean, let's say, there are positive aspects of being a man. Okay, I get it. There are some things that you avail from being a man, but that you are way ahead of anyone else just because you are a man. Just, let's say, I won the race, or I lift the trophy because I'm a man. No, because if I wouldn't have put the work, if I wouldn't be focused on my objective, if I wouldn't have managed my emotions, chances are that I wouldn't have won the game. So it was not really about my gender. It's about my mindset. That's what matters. Because as much as a man is in a better situation, if you are lazy, if you are not focused, then you'll be screwed like anyone else. That's simple.
Yeah, I actually really love that really standing out to me, you saying, I've never walked into a room and taken advantage of the fact that I'm a man. I'm just trying to even think of what circumstance any man walking in anywhere would feel like they have the upper hand. I don't think many. And I even am just drawing this back to my current work experience. We were chatting right before this started there. So I work with the Canadian Armed Forces, and I've spoken to a lot of my colleagues. And I'm even thinking, they don't get the experience, even though it's a male dominated workforce. And technically, to be a man in that role would be a positive, right? Because we need to be fit, we need to be all these things. And that just naturally is maybe a little bit easier for men. But they're still not walking into this environment feeling like they do have the upper hand. And in fact, it's the opposite. So that is something that definitely sits with me, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because that's I'm gonna let that marinate and continue thinking about that. But that definitely speaks volumes, right? Especially in how we are in the world, trying very, very hard to be inclusive of all different individuals. And
Yes.
I see that by doing that, we are now holding men into this small little group, and it's getting smaller and smaller.
Mhm.
And now it's like they're supposed to be the main group and everyone else is segregating away, but now they're their own group and we're not focusing on them because they're part of the regular population. And to me, that makes no sense. Now there is no regular kind of mass cohort if we are segregating. So we do need to now gear things toward men and speak to them individually, because if we're talking to everyone else individually, now they're individual. I don't know. That's just it's my logic, but it's not
That's,
happening. So
I mean, that whole narrative, in my estimation, is completely nonsense. Completely nonsense. Like when they say, because they came up with this historical repairment that men were having a good time, they were in charge, they were enjoying themselves. Now they need to be put on a corner and cry. It's not like their game is over. Someone else needs to be the person who will have the party, not them. I don't think it's that mathematical. There were some men throughout the history who maybe took advantage of being men. Yeah, but how many? 1%? Not even 1%. Like my father, I never said it on camera, but I will say it today. My father was so broke when he was young, when he was a kid, that he only had one pair of shoes, and he could only bring this pair of shoes once a week when he was going to school. Okay, I'm talking about the 60s. No, it's not like I don't know the beginning of last century. Talking about someone in Portugal, Western Europe. Not talking about, with all the respect, Southeast Asia, anything like that. Talking about an European country with well, we're not a democracy at the moment, but we are not. We're still an European nation, and that was his reality. He had one pair of shoes, and the weather was awful. They were living in the countryside. He had to walk on mud, and and the walk wasn't 5 or 10 minutes. It was at least 20 or 30 minutes each way, and that was a man. I don't know where he had a man privilege. I and this is not fantasy. No, he's not saying that just to look cute. He's not just saying that just to get likes on social media. He's not even on social media. He's saying that as a something that is part of his past, and he wants to share with us that we will appreciate things we have these days without taking for granted.
100%. I think just drawing attention to it is the best thing we can do to really advocate for men in the past who haven't really ever gotten validated, and currently the men who are experiencing, and honestly the men to come. I think the more that we can have these discussions and talk about how relevant this is for everybody, because I'd love for somebody to come at me and argue and say this doesn't apply to me. Well, do you have a dad? Do you have a brother? Then it applies to you. Congratulations. So it's
Yes.
very applicable in everybody's life. And I think that, I hope that I can just strike more conversation in the world about it, because the more you talk about it, the more it becomes less voodoo. It's more normal to talk about. That's kind of the beauty in sharing and really making sure that people recognize this is important and people care about it. And there are people that are willing to speak up about it. So
How do men react when they come across you, a woman, supporting us? Are they surprised? Are they thrilled? What sort of emotion you encounter the most?
I get definitely a good mixed bunch. A lot of them have questions and they're curious, and I'm happy to share. And others, I do find there's a lot that, since they have experienced a lot of pain and some poor experiences with women in the past, there are lots that don't necessarily trust me right away, or they
Mm.
obviously show a bit of just mistrust and hesitancy, and that's totally okay. Not gonna, at this point, I understand where they're coming from, and so I totally respect that. And I just approach with curiosity and understanding, because they have a, I understand why their behavior is like that, right? Even if I don't know exactly what they've been through, I can imagine pretty clearly that life hasn't really been easy, kind of just talking about what we've talked about, right? And all these disadvantages that
Mm.
men are faced with early on in their life and throughout their life. So, there's love. It's lovely. There's some that give me really kind, encouraging messages, and I really appreciate that. And then there's others that don't respond, and I'm not sure if it's because they're scared or this or that. And then there's others that, are hesitant, and we talk. But either way, regardless, I think that they all should be validated, acknowledged, and even if somebody doesn't necessarily want to take me up on that offer to talk or actually connect, that's okay, because I'm still going to do what I feel is right, which, connects to my mission of really just being that advocate and speaking out. And eventually, the people that do want to engage will. And some people need a little bit more time, and that's totally okay. Who am I to say talk to me or not? That's I don't force people. But I'll stand strong, I'll be stable, and I'll say, well, if you would like to talk, I'm here whenever you're ready, if you ever are ready, and that's okay.
I'm going to pick on another Nicholas comment here. It says,
Mhm.
I'm 29 years old. Thanks for being open, Nicholas. And if others want to share their stories, I'm more than happy to use them for our conversation. So I'm 29 years old, and not long ago, I was in a rocky relationship with my ex-girlfriend. She made a fake police report on me, tried to hurt my image, and I will never recover from the lies she told. We hear these things a lot. Uh, Usually the other way around, that men are like sharing erotic photos of their ex, or things they did in bed, which is an absolute disgrace. And but that one is, to me, it's I wouldn't say it's new, because I saw it in the past, but perhaps it's more recurrent than I would imagine.
Yeah, that's absolutely really difficult. And I think that kind of circles back to me mentioning men have to be so careful. And that's honestly just, I really wish I didn't have to wrap my head around that, because I couldn't imagine being a man in today's society needing to be so careful, right? Because your word is kind of at the bottom of the totem pole, which is wild, because you're a human being and should be treated equal, but that's just not how the justice
Mm.
systems and the social systems are built. So that is very difficult and honestly traumatic, right? Just that taking
Big
place,
time.
and having somebody do that to you who previously you trusted, and maybe things got rocky and unpleasant, but for that to take place, and now I could totally understand why trust is potentially a struggle, right? And how letting go of that experience can be extremely challenging, because it has such a massive influence and impact on somebody's life for that to happen, right? Like, I find that the men who I talk to who are having to be involved in these legal system, kind of, even if it's, mildly with the police involved, like, it brings so much shame and guilt and so many things that, you know, are just adding on to the pile of crap that you already have to deal with, even when life is okay. So that is definitely something that I recognize, I see a lot of. My heart is like dying just hearing about it, because I just cannot, it hurts me that other people feel that that's the way to go about things, other people being men and women to do this to other men. But ultimately, I guess, well, reassurance I do want to provide is that there is a way forward no matter what happens. It's just not easy, because anything that is worth it is never going to be easy. And it's a matter of being, I was going to say ready, but that's a lie. I'm going to throw that one out, because no one's ever ready to actually move forward from any of these kinds of experiences. You're never going to, that's the biggest stigma I think that I like to address with all guys about anything. You're never going to feel ready. It's never going to feel like the right time. Your emotions are never going to feel better about it for you to actually take those steps. And I speak from personal experience when I say all these things, because ultimately something that is very painful, it needs intention, it needs care, it needs an actual plan forward, but it can be addressed. It's just, things are hard. Like that sounds like a really hard experience to go through. So the fact that you're feeling whatever you're feeling, right, I think is completely valid, right? Nobody can evaluate how you're feeling about it. I just, I hope that it's not going to impact your life and influence you to a degree that you are unhappy with. And if it is, then I'm really hoping that you're able to take the steps to one day work through that, because it is workable. It totally is workable, but it's just not going to be easy, right?
What are your thoughts on this movement, the red pill? Do you think it's a symptom of our society? Do you think they offer some advice that perhaps we men should listen? Like, what's your perception of those individuals, especially on YouTube, X, that sort of platforms?
Ultimately, oh God, I try not to look a lot at what like is going on online, because I usually don't like it very much, because it doesn't align with what I feel in terms of everybody's equal. And, I just feel like I'm kind of the unicorn screaming about things and nobody agrees. But ultimately, I really just hope that everybody can just recognize that, men are just as human as women, and women are just as human as men. And when I see this kind of back and forth between like this or that, or, all sorts of different things online, I almost want to kind of take everybody by the shoulders and just like give them a little, like, we're all here on the same planet trying to do the same thing, which is be happy most likely. I'm going to make an assumption. I'm going to make an assumption for everybody. We're trying to all probably be happy, experience joy in our life, experience peace. So ultimately, I really just wish everybody would approach each other with curiosity, right? Like, oh, that person, that's happening for them. I wonder why, right? Oh, that person just screamed. I wonder why. Oh, that man looks really mad or really withdrawn. I wonder why. I think that to me is how I would like to see things online portrayed. People approach each other online, like different stuff like that. I try to stay away from most of kind of the messaging, because I just assume it's probably not useful, to be honest. Maybe it is, but it's mixed in, right? There's that variety. There's
Yes.
great messages online, but to navigate the online space with all of the different messages and be able to recognize, especially men who aren't supported, haven't been actually equipped with the skills for, understanding how they feel and all these things, like how the hell are they supposed to know what messages are of value, which ones are realistic? So I just, I try to, I guess, practice what I preach and preach the same thing. And I hope that that cuts through the noise. But ultimately, I don't know if that answered your question. Sorry, I just kind of went off on like, online's a really sketchy place.
Yeah, no, I think it's very healthy to approach the internet space in that manner, because the way I perceive most of these individuals on social media and YouTube, they are very much tribalistic. So I believe that bottom line, they are alone, they are sad, they are bitter, and they feel that they don't really belong. So they come across these groups and they want to wear their shirts that they will be part of a wider group, and that's the only way that they won't feel visible. Well, they will pretend they don't, because deep down they do. So when I see these things, these clashes between groups, I'm very similar to you. I'd rather walk away, and I start to smell it, and it smells really, really bad. I don't like, first, because I hate group thinking. I always hated
Yeah.
since I was a kid. And when I see that people, like, they start to follow all the the patterns. So if they are for X, then they are for Y, and if they are for Y, they are for Z, and they are against A, B, and C. And I'm like, I have no nerves for this. If it's that obvious, I'm not interested. It's not interesting. Like I like when someone is able to surprising me. But no, like let's say I have this line of thinking, but all of a sudden I kind of divert without contradicting myself. It's just an element of me that is not really evident. Great, great, because that means that you think you think for yourself. That's something. Most people don't. Most people they encounter that group. They think they can fit there, so they won't be on their own anymore, and they think their life is sorted. Probably not, because that's just something that will probably that may serve them for uh, some periods, but in the long run, they will realize that they are just pretending, and it's going to be ugly going forward. And that's the same for red pill or blue pill or whatever pill you want to call it. It's I think it's and there are, of course, with that I'm not saying that there aren't I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 5 messages. Maybe we should listen as men. Maybe it's not all crap. Like they say, even what's the sentence? Even a wrong walk is correct twice a day.
Right.
I think there's a quote like that, no?
Yes,
And it's
yes,
true,
something like that. Yeah.
something like that, no? So, no, everyone is correct at least once in a day. So I will give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, be around them. I don't think that's healthy, because there's a lot of hate, a lot of resentment. Um, you don't need that. You don't need that. You want to be in peace, and your peace is not replaceable. That's at least that's my perception. I want to ask you one thing, because we are coming to the last 10 or 15 minutes before you go. Is there a pattern of man, right, when it comes to fall over and over again in a toxic relationship? Can we say that I'm going to do two questions in one? Can we say that toxic men attract toxic relationships, or there is no connection between the two?
I would say I'm going to amend that. Toxic. Let's say this. Because ultimately comes down to why people, attract a certain partner. And I've learned this within my own experience as well, that there's definitely reasons for it, right? We are always seeking something that's familiar to us. So usually
Yes.
if I'm working with a guy who is in a toxic, unhealthy relationship, it's because it's something he knows. And some we are doomed to repeat history, whether it's in the relationship realm or whether it's in other realms of the world. That's kind of just something that happens on earth. But I wouldn't say like a toxic person attracts a toxic relationship. I get that a lot. I got a lot of guys are wondering, well, is it me? And I guess I also want to kind of reinforce that, when you're in those kind of dynamics, you're not going to be the best version of yourself. Like, I was also
Mm.
doing toxic things inside my toxic relationship. It's just something that's part of the dynamic where you're in survival and you're doing things that you probably aren't really proud of. So ultimately, whether it's, before a relationship starts up or after, that's where, identifying these patterns of why did it happen in the past, or why did it just happen, like that is really important. That is part of the work that I do, because it's like, you're out, that's great, but let's maybe not let that happen again. So I'm always kind of attributing that to the fact that, like, we need to change your internal system. Your internal system has been attuned and calibrated to this garbage experience and surviving that, and now let's maybe not find that again, because ultimately our nervous systems love what it knows. It will be in a very negative place and seek out negativity and trauma because it's familiar, right? So that's where I like to really make sure that I'm taking these men. I'm saying your operating system kind of sucks. That's not anything bad for you. That's just the truth, and that's okay. Let's just recalibrate it to something where it's going to understand how to seek out healthy, how to actually identify healthy, how to first embody what healthy is, you know. That's kind of, I hate friggin' saying this because I didn't really want to believe it for myself, but in order to actually find healthy relationships and know what exactly to look for, you need to do it yourself first.
Yes.
That is, I hate saying that because when somebody told me that, I was like, whatever, I'll figure it out. But then, you know, I tried other things. It did not work. And there was a point that I was like, I don't want that to happen again. That was traumatic, right? So ultimately, I think it comes down to really getting to know what patterns you have that caused that person to appear attractive and also be attracted to you, and kind of breaking that down. So ultimately, like, that's one piece, but I like to work with my guys to, like, we're going to change it. Like, let's, yeah, whatever happened in the past, like, clearly that didn't work. So we don't need to sit here and therapy it out for like 20 years. We're just going to change it. We don't need to, you know, understanding is helpful, but action is actually going to get you the results, which is going to change your reality. So that's kind of what I like to focus on, is actually just changing that system, giving it a software update, and converting it into something that's going to break the patterns that didn't work and just replace them with patterns that do, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Those are just
Yeah.
like, I can probably tell
But-
you like 100 patterns that don't work, but that's the issue, is it's helpful to know, but it's more helpful to actually know what patterns do work, right? We all know what doesn't. I'm sure you can probably name several that does, but it's about identifying what does. And that's where people get stuck. They don't go that far. They just know what they don't want, and they don't take the time to actually decide what they do. So that's what I do.
Yeah, that talks to Jordan Peterson advice when once he mentioned that if, like, instead of looking for the right woman, you should become the man that the woman want to date. And I think that's a life change. And again, this is also something that you can apply in other aspects of your life. Let's say, instead of looking for the right employer, become the employee that the employers want to hire. Because if you keep searching for the right person that ticks all the boxes, you're going to die alone. If you're going to keep searching for the perfect employer, you're going to be sending CVs for the rest of your life, because there's no such thing as the perfect fit for your working aspirations. So you need to be the man that women want to be around with. That's it. Just you need to build up their profile, that skill set, that those manners, that way of thinking, of interacting, and then the rest will come. The rest will come, because if you are not that person, chances are that you'll never ever come across that woman, because that woman is not interested on you.
For sure. And I think that speaks to why I feel passionate about helping men, is because where the hell are men supposed to learn that, get that information? There's barely any male-oriented resources. I've definitely tried to look, and there's not many. So that's why, like, there are a lot of men that want to do that, and they just have no clue where to start, where to go, you know, how to achieve that. And also, you know, let go of all that crap that's holding them back from getting there. So I agree. You know, we need to certainly help them out by offering them things that will help them get there.
I'll bring back Nicholas to the conversation. He has an actual question for you, Elaina. Saying, my boyfriend, who I'm currently dating, I find that he is using me for intimacy. What should I do? I want to please him, or is it a red flag? So how do you approach this two situation? Because apparently he has the impression that he is being used as a pleasure toy more than anything else.
I definitely I really like to focus on the individual. And then, regardless of what the other person's intentions and whatever, it really comes back to you and what you're okay with and how that makes you feel. And if that's aligned with what you want, because there are some people that will say, that's totally fine. I'm looking for something casual. I don't really care. I'm not really emotionally invested. But if you want more, or if you are feeling like that doesn't help you feel valued or heard or respected, like really ask yourself, if is that something that makes me feel good, right? Because relationships and usually connections are supposed to add to our life, not take away. So if there's any hesitation, if there's anything that's kind of on your mind, like, this feels kind of weird, or it doesn't really rub me the right way, then that definitely speaks to kind of me in the beginning here saying, like, our nervous systems are really smart. And if there's something, this is your gut instinct, which is something I had to learn how the hell to listen to, and it took me a while. But really, what I'm asking you to do is tap into your gut instinct and ask yourself that question. And the first thing that comes up, whether it's a feeling or maybe it's an answer, that is going to be what you need to actually pursue, right? But ultimately, it comes back to what you want. And a lot of guys come to me all the time, Elaina, what should I do? I said, well, what's your goal? What do you want? Because who am I to tell people what to do, right? Maybe it'll make them happy to stay with this person. To hell with what I know. But will it make them happy? You know, a lot of people forget to ask themselves. So that would be my advice, is to really dial in and see how that makes you feel and let it marinate a little bit. If you're not sure right away, just think about it, hold it in your mind for a couple of days and let yourself, just think about that, and something will come up if you're willing to listen, right? Like the truth and the real answer is going to come up if you're willing to actually let it surface. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, I liked a lot, again, that approach. And I'm not being cute. I know I'm giving you a lot of compliments, but I'm a man of my word, and I'm not saying this just for the sake. I truly endorse what is your advice, because it seems to me that is, for the most part, okay, is look yourself in the mirror, listen to your heart, listen to your gut. Know what you stand for, have a good understanding of what are your desires and what really serves you. And the rest is just noise, because and that's an exercise that many people avoid, and no wonder, because it's painful. It's much easier to point fingers, saying it's his fault, it's her to blame. It was my parents when I was younger, and yeah, perhaps all these individuals have a stake in your situation. Of course, we are not living with ourselves, or we're not alone all the time. So there is a degree of external factors that need to be taken in consideration. But end of the day, it's about how you perceive what happened to you, what you did with that, and how are you going to carry it going forward. It's a decision, and of course there are dragons to face, and horrible animals and monsters and all that. But as you said, they are absolutely necessary. If you don't look at them in the eye, you will still be miserable. You will still avoid that mirror, because there's no more terrible situation than seeing yourself as you really are, because there is a mismatch between the person you want to be and the person you are, and that feels awful, especially for a man, because most men, I believe that most of us are very ambitious, even though we are lazy, or we are not that proactive, or even passive. Most men, at least, they have dreams. That they do the work, maybe a lot of us are well behind. But that we have these ideas in our head, and we would like to see them happening, just we don't know how, and some of us never even take the first step. Yeah, that's a fact. That we are ambitious, we are, but there's nothing, I think there's nothing more painful than allowing your ideas, your aspirations dying in your head. Like, don't allow to have a corpse in your own brain. It's terrible. It's the worst place to have a corpse is your own head. So clean it up.
Absolutely. People are capable of much more than they give themselves credit for. And it's just until they realize that there's a lot possible. It's just a matter of action. God, it always comes back to action. To take action. It could lead to failure, it could lead to success, but you're not going to know until you take it.
I like that. I just need to bring Nicholas back to the comment. Thanks for the super chat. That's very kind of you. Thank you for being respectful towards me being bisexual. Look, I take these things very natural. To me, it's irrelevant whether people are bisexual or heterosexual. I don't even care. I don't even care. So you are as welcome as you will be heterosexual. The door is open. People come with good intentions. They are interested in real, tangible conversations. That's the place. We in this YouTube channel. Sorry, Elaina, just give me a minute or two on this. We in this podcast, we don't care about identity. We just don't. There's no such thing as skin color or sexual orientation or ethnicity. It's irrelevant. I don't care. I don't do quotas. I bring people here like Elaina that add value. It's that simple. And often, or for the most part, I think I took good decisions. I don't know, 98% of the times, I didn't think that I bring the wrong guest. That's it. I look at the people online, and if they have the profile, I bring them in. And that's how you should approach these things. It's all about merit and capacity. So, like Elaina, she's a woman. She's talking about men topics. That's just a coincidence. I ask her because it's not that common. I ask her how she feels about it. But is it the reason why I brought you here? No. Is the reason why I wouldn't bring you here? No. It's just because you know the stuff, and these almost 90 minutes that we are here just prove my words. You know it from A to Z. So it was amazing having you here. And sorry, it's another compliment, but when compliments
I appreciate it because I really value what you do. I mean, being able to create a platform that people can come, chat. It's a safe place. It's a place to learn, grow, and really share. And I think that is the most powerful thing, at least I've experienced in my life. It's the sharing, right? Because I mean, everyone's going through the similar things. If we don't talk about it, we don't know about it. And so we feel isolated. So the more that we can share and collaborate, like what you're doing today with me, is such a contribution to the world. And I feel grateful to be a part of it. So I really appreciate that.
Great. I think we would have topics for another hour or two, but just for the interest of time, we need to put an end in this conversation, not because we don't know what else we could discuss, but it's just the nature of YouTube conversation. So we will leave it for another occasion. I'm sure there'll be plenty of opportunities. I had a blast chatting with you, Elaina. I wish you all the best with your professional and personal endeavors. For people who are watching us, Elaina's details are in the description. If you want to work on a one-on-one with her, use the contact details there. And hope everyone will benefit from working with you. And I'm sure they can only benefit from it. So thank you very much, Elaina.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And anytime you want to continue this conversation, I am more than happy. I can talk for days about it.
Great. So for those who are watching us, thank you very much. It always makes it more interesting when there is people on the other side, especially like Nicholas, who was open and able to share his experiences, and he also contributed for this conversation to be insightful. So special thanks to Nicholas. This conversation will remain online. So if you know someone who may benefit from it, and I'm sure you know, I know good few people. So I'm going to share myself, and not just to promote my YouTube channel, also because I think people will be in a better situation after listening to Elaina. Please share. If you want to be part of the community, I'll be very thankful if you can subscribe. There is also some membership plans, so there are perks about being a member. There are some contact that I want to share with members. So if you want to be part of the community and join one of the memberships, there's one called Witty Mate, another is Witty Ambassador, if I remember. But I should know these things. But those are things that will help you be part of the community and access the content really, really quick. So, with that, I thank you again, and we'll be in touch. All the best.
I'm gonna go subscribe. Perfect. Thank you.